Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be doing an Orioles-related episode for today. And I know it's been a while since we've done this. I know it's been a little bit since we've done an Orioles-based episode, but we are going to be doing an Orioles episode today. Free agency does start tomorrow at like 4 o'clock, I believe, so we're pretty much like 24 hours away from free agency officially starting in baseball. And again, I've alluded to it a lot of times before. I really do believe that this Orioles free agency is arguably one of the biggest free agencies they've had in a long, long time, because it really does kind of feel like, with getting Craig Albertaz as the new manager, it kind of does feel like the Orioles are in a way trying to turn a new leaf, trying to get a new culture, a new mentality, and just overall really try and push for something big. Because especially when you look at like what the Toronto Blue Jays did this past year, I mean, I don't think a lot of people really expected Toronto to be in the World Series, but they went out there and played very well and, literally pushed the Dodgers to, their breaking point in the World Series. But, the Dodgers still ended up winning. But it's just one of those things where in baseball, like, obviously, like, you can sit here and say, like, the best team is going to win every year, but that usually is not the case. Like, the Dodgers, the past 2 years, were the best team in baseball going into the season, and they ended up winning the World Series because they have a stacked, roster and, played very good complementary baseball whenever it mattered. But a lot of the times in the World Series, it's teams that can kind of survive October, kind of get through, and, in the past two playoff appearances that the Orioles have had back in 2023 and 2024, they've struggled heavily. They've struggled mightily. They have not played good when it came to the playoffs. They literally haven't won a playoff game in 10 years, so it's been a long time since the Orioles have had any sort of success. It's been over 40 years since they've won a World Series, and it kind of does feel like things are starting to change for the better. They have a ton of position players with so much talent. Guys like Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, Adley Rutschman, Jordan Westburg, Colton Cowser, all these guys. And then you even have like guys that we're going to get to see their first full rookie seasons of in Samuel Basallo and Dylan Beavers. So there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to the Orioles. Pitching-wise, they got Trevor Rogers and Cobb Bradish, who, Trevor Rogers played incredible this past year, and there's a lot of optimism and expectation for this upcoming year. And then Cobb Bradish, obviously, we know what he brings to the table whenever he's healthy. But there's a lot of work that the Orioles are going to have to do this offseason to make sure that their roster is the best that it can be heading into 2026. And again, MLB free agency starts tomorrow. So in today's episode, I kind of just wanted to go over some names that I really want to see the Orioles go after, because there's a lot of guys that I would really be happy with them getting. And, just a little bit of a spoiler alert, it's going to be everything pitching related. I do think that the Orioles will have interest in some position players, but that's not really what I want to go over today. What the Orioles need right now is pitching. They need some starting pitching. They need to refill the bullpen a little bit, and they also need to get a true solid closer. And when it comes to this upcoming free agency, there is a lot of talented starting pitchers, a lot of talented closers, and even some good bullpen names in there as well. So, and again, every team can say this, how they want to see their team be the best that they can. But with, obviously making the playoffs in 2023, making the playoffs in 2024, they saw success there. I mean, they saw success with that core that they have. And that young core is even stronger now than it was back then. But the reason why the Orioles struggled this past year, they went from a 100-win team and a 90-win team to a 75-win team in just like a season. The reason why that happened is because the pitching and the starting pitching was so god-awful at the beginning of the year, and they just couldn't really dig themselves out of the hole, as the season went on. But the starting pitching was atrocious. The bullpen was okay, and, Felix Bautista, whenever he played, was okay, but we don't even know when we're going to see Felix Bautista again. I don't even know if he's going to pitch for the Orioles ever again. But when it comes to starting pitching, that's going to be the main thing. Going out and, having a big splash, getting a big name. The Orioles a couple of years ago when they traded for Corbin Burnes, that was considered a big splash. But it didn't really necessarily matter because, Corbin Burnes had a great year for us in 2024. We ended up going to the playoffs. He obviously was the Game 1 starter against the Royals, and he got through 8 innings score. He got through 9 innings, gave up 1 run in 9 innings, and we lost the game. So him leaving in free agency that next offseason was, pretty obvious. So we traded for Corbin Burnes on a 1-year rental, and then we didn't re-sign him. So the Corbin Burnes trade didn't even end up being anything crazy, even though that was supposed to be like the big splash, which it was at the time. But it would be really, really cool if the Orioles went into free agency this year and really landed a big name, especially a big pitcher. And we're going to go over in just a second a couple of really good pitchers. But when it comes to expectations, again, for this Orioles season, I really do believe that they can go out there and make the playoffs as a wild card. I think that is like the goal this year, is to get into the playoffs and make it to October. That would be really, really, really cool. I'm not sitting here expecting them to make the playoffs. Like, okay, this past year, right, this past season that we just, went through, my expectations going into the year, bare minimum, was make the playoffs. Because, again, they just won 90 games. They got into the playoffs the past 2 years. I didn't think that there was going to be a dramatic fall-off. Even though the free agency was very underwhelming, I thought that the offense was going to kind of have to carry this team to success, which they didn't really. The offense was borderline mid for most of the year anyway. But at the same time, they were kind of put into bad situations just because of the pitching. But again, like last year, my expectation, bare minimum, was just to get into the playoffs. I knew that winning the division was going to be hard with the Yankees being good and the Red Sox being good and obviously the Orioles being good. But again, no one really expected Toronto to come out of nowhere, win that division, and then obviously go to the World Series and almost win it. So seeing what Toronto did this past year does kind of give a lot of optimism, a lot of hope to potentially what the Orioles can do. Because in my opinion, in terms of like talent on the roster and as a roster as a whole, I really don't think on paper that the Orioles' talent is that far off from the Blue Jays as of right now. I think that it can get a lot closer if we have a good offseason. But again, it's all going to come down to what Mike Elias wants to do. Hopefully Craig Albernaz can kind of bring that motivation to Mike Elias that he wants to go out there and sign pitchers. And again, yesterday in Craig Albernaz's press conference, he was talking all about how he kind of saw the vision of everything and how he really was on board. So again, this isn't the time for the Orioles to kind of like lay back, be mid, and just do nothing. You know what I mean? It's kind of time to, pull the trigger, push the gas right now, and go out there and really go make a big move and make a statement in this offseason, like righting your wrongs in a way for Mike Elias. Because when you go back to last offseason, it was extremely disappointing. We missed out on a ton of free agents last year, and then we ended up getting like the sloppy seconds of Charlie Morton, Tomoyuki Sagano, Tyler O'Neill, guys like that. Like, it was a very underwhelming free agency when there was a lot of big names out there. And if you want to compare like last year's names to this year's names, last year's names were bigger and more impactful, but there's still a lot of big free agents this season, including the fact that there was a report earlier today that the Tigers are going to be like seriously considering a lot of Tarek Skubal trade offers. So I don't know if Mike Elias or them can hear me, but if they can, like, and this is the thing with like the Tarek Skubal trade, the Orioles. And another reason why I'm optimistic that like good things can happen in terms of like trades as well, the Orioles farm system is one of the best farm systems in baseball. They are stacked when it comes to their farm system after all the trades that they just did this past trade deadline, getting all of those prospects from all the teams. Their farm system is stacked and completely revitalized. They have a lot of young position player talent on the roster right now, which we could flip for a trade and then just eventually promote someone from our farm. Like, they have a lot of talent on their team to eventually go out and try and make a big deal for a player like, Tarek Skubal. Like, last year I thought that it was possible that we would put together a trade package for Garrett Crochet, and if Tarek Skubal offers are going to seriously be considered, I don't see why the Orioles can't put themselves at the front of the line and offer up some of their, young, star, talented players. They can give away some people in their farm, maybe even trade some people on their current roster right now. Not like, to an extent, we'll have to see what the trade is. But I really do think that the Orioles should entertain the idea of trading for Tarek Skubal. Because if they are able to land Tarek Skubal, who is going to win his second Cy Young this, they haven't done the MLB awards yet, but he's going to win his second Cy Young, so it'll be back-to-back Cy Youngs for Tarek Skubal. I don't really know why the Tigers want to trade him. I guess that they're not really on contract extension terms right now. But if the Orioles want to go make a splash, you trade for Tarik Skubal, you give him a contract extension, and then all of a sudden, you kind of put the MLB world on notice if you make that trade. Now, am I confident that they'll make a trade like that? Not really, but to be honest with you, I really don't see why they couldn't go do that because they have such a big farm system. Their biggest need is starting pitcher and just pitching in general, and you could go out and literally get the best pitcher in baseball. And if that's an opportunity, I don't know why you wouldn't go for it. If they want to make a statement, I think that that's a perfect way to go do that. But again, we'll see what ends up happening. That would be absolutely insane if they did that. But I'm kind of going to operate under the assumption that they're not going to do that. But let's just go over some of these free agent names that I think that they should go over. Okay, so going over some available free agents. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can actually see all of the names on my screen. But if you're listening on Spotify, I will obviously be talking about it. But we are currently on a site that is pretty much just all of the available starting pitchers. You can categorize it by like undrafted free agents, player opt-in, opt-outs, club options, all that stuff. So we kind of have it set to undrafted free agents. We have the positions set to pitchers, all teams, 2026, all that stuff. So you can kind of set this site to like their previous value, like per season. Like if you go here, like you can see Jordan Montgomery, Nick Martinez, Chris Bassett are like the top 3 guys on here, getting paid like $20 million a year. But to kind of adjust it to more like realistic, like who are the best guys on here, we're going to go for market value, which is pretty much what their AAV market value is kind of set at. Just like right now. And as you can see here, and just looking at the list of names, there's a lot of pitchers out here who could really help the Orioles, and they should go after a lot of these top guys, and it would be really interesting. So some of the guys on this list that we'll kind of go over, Framber Valdez is sitting at the top here with a market value of $33 million, which seems about right. We got Framber Valdez, you have Shoto Imanaga, who was not expected to be a free agent, but he actually opted out of his deal, so he is now an official free agent, so getting Shoto Imanaga could be really cool. Ranger Suarez is on here, Dylan Cease, Michael King, Luis Giolito, Zach Gallen, Edwin Diaz, Brandon Woodruff, Robert Suarez, Zach Eflin, who I doubt we're going to re-sign, Merrill Kelly, Chris Bassett, Aaron Savali, Michael Lorenzen, Nick Martinez, Kenley Jensen, guys like that. So I just named a few. But the first thing that I want to start off with is starting pitchers. That is what I first want to go over, is the starting pitcher category. I'm going to go over starting pitchers, I'm going to go over relief pitchers, and I'm going to go over closers, because I think that the Orioles should kind of look at all 3 of those phases of pitching and go after people in all 3 of those phases. Again, when it comes to this free agency, and there was even a report by Ken Rosenthal, like before I think the playoffs even started. I remember it was the last day of the MLB season. It was the last day of it was like the last game for the Orioles where we played the Yankees, like back in late September. It was the last day, and I literally remember there was a tweet that said that Ken Rosenthal, like due to like some reports, and he obviously is a very credible MLB reporter, he was saying that the Orioles are expected to be one of the most, if not the most aggressive team when it comes to pitching in general. So that's, again, why I'm saying that, like, I'm going to read off a lot of these top guys thinking that the Orioles are going to have interest in a lot of these guys. Obviously, there's little its and bits of stuff like that. They're going to go for guys that are good fits. They're going to go for guys that are whatever arm they want. They're going to go for guys that would fit their system, guys that would fit what they want. Every single team has their own little analytics that they like to, cling to, and the Orioles obviously have that. It's going to be changed a little bit this year because we are bringing in pretty much a whole new, hitting coaching staff, plus obviously a new manager in Craig Abernaz. But going over some of these market value names for the pitchers, we got Framber Valdez sitting at the top here. Now, I would love to go out there and get Framber Valdez in free agency. He's one of the top free agents. I think he has the second highest market value of any player in free agency right now, only behind, I think, Kyle Tucker. But going over Framber Valdez, obviously, he's been with the Astros a long time. But going over some of these statistics throughout his career, in 2025, this past year, he had a 3.66 ERA, which is actually the highest ERA he's had in like a 5-year span. Because again, a 3.66 ERA for an Orioles pitcher, that would be elite, honestly, this season. But this kind of was a down year for Framber. There's a lot of things that a lot of people say about him, about how, obviously when he's on the mound, he's a great pitcher, but it's one of those things where, like, if he starts to get rattled, if he gives up a couple of hits, it's kind of downhill from there. But if he's got it going early on, he's like unstoppable. So it's very much a momentum-like pitcher. But Framber would be someone who I would love to go get. In my opinion, I think he is the top guy that the Orioles should go after for starting pitcher-wise. And if you can get Framber Valdez and put him next to Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish, that would be incredible. And I would be so unbelievably excited about what's to come. But going over 2025, he had a 3.66 ERA, which again isn't bad, but isn't necessarily up to his standards. Throughout his career, he's averaged either like a high 2 or a low 3. 3.66 is still a solid year. I think he was like 24th in ERA, which again isn't bad. And even on the Astros, you had that duo of Hunter Brown and Framber. So, but Framber Valdez, a 3.66 ERA. He pitched 192 innings, had a 13-11 record, a 3.7 WAR, had 187 strikeouts. So again, he's someone who doesn't really give up a ton of home runs, only 15 home runs across 192 innings. So again, not a lot of home runs he gives up. 187 strikeouts and 192 innings is pretty good. And then a 3.66 ERA, again, isn't bad. But when you go and look at 2024, in 2024 he was very good. He had a 15-7 record, 2.91 ERA, 176 innings, 169 strikeouts. So he was great in 2024. 2023 he was good, and then 2022 was actually his best season, where he had a 2.82 ERA, 17-6 record, 194 strikeouts, and 200 innings. So that's someone that the Orioles need to go after. Framber Valdez, I am putting a big check mark next to him in terms of guys that I want to go after. A big old check mark next to Framber Valdez. And I think that he would be such a good fit for the Orioles moving forward. Another guy that I would like to see them go after, another guy that could be really cool, is Shota Imanaga. Shoto is someone who has only been in the MLB for 2 years, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's only played 2 years in the MLB. He came over from Japan at the age of 30. Great Japanese pitcher. Obviously, we've seen what the Japanese, the Japanese players have done in baseball recently. We've seen how big of an impact that they've made. Guys like Shohei Ohtani, guys like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, guys like Tomoyuki Sakano. I'm just kidding, not Tomoyuki Sakano, but Shota Imanaga is someone who has been incredible in the past 2 years of his career. Well, this past year was a little bit not as good as it was in 2024, but 2024 he technically was a rookie at the age of 30, and he was incredible in his rookie year. He had, if you go back to 2024, he had a 15-3 record, 173 innings, a 2.91 ERA, and 174 strikeouts with a 1.02 WHIP. So he was great in 2024. 2025, he did take a step back. Didn't play as many games. Had 25 games played, 3.73 ERA, 144 innings, 117 strikeouts. So the strikeout rate was not as good as it was in 2024. The ERA was higher, but the WHIP was lower, and then obviously the WAR was lower as well. So 2025, he did take a step back, but he still is a good pitcher. He was dealing with some injuries throughout the year, was kind of battling through some injuries, but Shota Imanaga could be someone who I would love to see in the orange for the Orioles. Now, there was a lot of rumors and what people are saying how he's only going to go to the West Coast, and there's a lot of people that are kind of pointing to the Giants or the Dodgers or the Padres or somewhere like that, especially with the Padres now that Yu Darvish is confirmed to be out for the year. Again, there's a lot of teams that are going to go after starting pitching. You can never have enough good starting pitchers in baseball, which is why it's very hard to obtain starting pitchers sometimes, and especially with the Orioles, they're not a big market team. They're not the Yankees. They're not the Dodgers. They're not any like the Red Sox. They're not any of these big market teams. They're the Orioles. So again, it's going to be up to them. It's going to be up to Craig. It's going to be up to Mike to convince guys and give guys the money to come here, because from what we heard from David Rubenstein yesterday, he said with his own mouth, with his own voice, he said there are no financial restrictions when it comes to this upcoming offseason, and we want to build the best team we possibly can. And if that's true, I would love to kind of see it play out in real time. I would love to see results with that quote. And a big way to go do that is to sign a Shota Imanaga or a Framber Valdez, or even someone like a Dylan Cease, who we're actually going to go over right now. We're going to go over Ranger Suarez right now. So Ranger Suarez is the next guy who is one of the top guys in free agency. He is with Scott Boras, and we all know Scott Boras goes after the money, doesn't really go after the fit. We'll go after the money, so if we're going to want to get Ranger Suarez, we're definitely going to have to give him the big bucks. But he's 30 years old, just turned 30 years old. Go over into his statistics throughout his career. Wasn't always a starter in his career, was a bullpen guy early on in Philadelphia, then got eventually transferred to a starter back in 2022. And since then, he's been a solid starter. 2022, when he first became a starting pitcher, had a 3.65 ERA, which is fine. Then he had a 4.18 ERA in 2023, so not a great year in 2023. 2024 had a 3.47 ERA, and then 2025, he actually had the best year of his career with a 3.20 ERA, 151 strikeouts in 157 innings, and with a 12-8 record. So, Ranger Suarez is another guy, and for some reason I can kind of just feel us getting Ranger Suarez. I have a feeling that Ranger Suarez or Framber is going to be the guy that we actually end up getting. But Ranger Suarez would be a great addition for the Orioles. Again, he's with Scott Boras, so it's going to be hard to get him. We're going to have to throw a lot of money at him, but we'll see what ends up happening. And again, when it comes to the money, when it comes to spending money, I have to see it to believe it. You know what I mean? We've never really seen the Orioles go out there and really commit to spending money. And if they want to make an impact, if they want to kind of send out a message to the MLB, if they want to kind of make a statement going into this season, they need to go out there and spend hella money on some starting pitchers, some bullpen guys, and a closer. So that's what they need to do. It's very clear and obvious what the Orioles need to do this free agency to succeed, to make a statement moving into 2026, because, again, it's an extremely important free agency. We're adapting a whole new culture with Craig Albanaz. You can kind of feel the page turning. You can feel the new leaf kind of being turned. You can feel, the momentum starting to kind of swing in the Orioles' favor with all their prospects, with all their young talent, with getting a new manager, with your owner saying that there's no financial restrictions. But we'll see again what ends up happening with that. I'm only going to go over a couple more starting pitchers here. And again, throughout free agency, we're going to talk about the Orioles a lot. We're going to talk about guys that they have interest in. If there's reports about the Orioles having interest in certain people, we're going to talk about that. But this is just kind of like the beginning, talks about free agency. We're going to be talking about it a lot as it kind of goes over time over the next few weeks. If we have interest in certain guys, we're going to talk about it. Anyone that they sign, we're obviously going to break that down in detail. But again, this is kind of like the intro to like a free agency preview in a way, kind of like we do for some of the football games. But going over to the next pitcher I want to talk about is Dylan Cease. And Dylan Cease is someone that I think a lot of people know about, one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's 29, did have a down year from what we're used to seeing from him. Used to be on the White Sox, has been on the Padres the past couple of years. But he did have a pretty big down year this year. This was arguably the worst year of his career as a starting pitcher. Not a great year for him. A 4.55 ERA, that was kind of, what the Orioles' average was for starting pitchers this year. So a 4.55 ERA, 168 innings, but 215 strikeouts. And Dylan Cease has always been somebody who is a strikeout machine. I mean, he has had over 200 strikeouts in 5 straight seasons of being a full-time starter, and he also doesn't really miss games ever. 2021 played 32 games, 2022 played 32 games, 2023 played 33 games, 2024 played 33 games, 2025 played 32 games. So never really misses games, is relatively, doesn't really deal with any sort of injury history. The injury history is clean. He's 29 years old, about to turn 30, and he's a strikeout monster, which the Orioles don't really have or didn't really have this past year. Again, over 200 strikeouts, really over 214 strikeouts in 5 straight seasons. 2021, he had 226. 2022, he had 227. 2023, he had 214. 2024, he had 224. 2025, he had 215. So a lot of strikeouts from Dylan Cease. He's always up there in the top 5, top 6 every single year in total strikeouts. The ERA isn't anything like ridiculous, but if you go over to 2022, he was incredible in 2022. A 2.2 ERA in 184 innings, 227 strikeouts, a 2.20 ERA, 14-8 record. He was ridiculous for the White Sox in 2022. But in the past 2 years with the Padres, he's put up a 3.47 ERA with 224 strikeouts, and then a 4.55 ERA with 215 strikeouts. So this year did lose a lot of games, an 8-12 record for the Padres this year, which wasn't great. Didn't have the best year ever. Did definitely decrease his money value, but that might be the best possible thing. And another thing is that he is also with Scott Boras, so we're definitely going to have to give him a lot of money. But I think Dylan Cease is definitely in the range of possibilities for the Orioles to go get. He's 30 years old. He's not too old. Definitely kind of fits the timeline. Someone who can get you a ton of strikeouts. The ERA numbers haven't been great, but the strikeout numbers are definitely there for Dylan Cease. And the last pitcher, the last starting pitcher that I'm going to go over is going to be Michael King, who is someone who's been with the Padres the past couple of years. This was kind of surprising. It was expected that he was going to be with the Padres this year, but he actually did decline, and he is now a free agent. So with the Padres the past couple of years, decided he was going to test free agency, did deal with some injuries this year, only started 15 games this past season, but in those 15 games this year, got through 73 innings, had a 3.44 ERA, and had 76 strikeouts in 76 innings. Or 76 strikeouts in 73 innings. So a solid year for Michael King, even though he only played pretty much half the season. He's 30 years old, very similar age to Dylan Cease, someone who I could really see being an Oriole as well. Again, any of these 5 guys that I've been talking about, if they can go and get 2 of them, or even just 1 of them, that would be a huge statement. I would love any of these 5 guys on the team. But a 3.44 ERA. But if you go back and look at 2024, because he didn't become a starting pitcher until 2024. He was a bullpen guy with the Yankees for a few years. But if you go and look at 2024 in his first year as a full-time starting pitcher, he was incredible. For someone being in their first year as a starting pitcher, 173 innings, 2.95 ERA, 201 strikeouts. He was great in 2024. 2025 dealt with some injuries, still had a good year. But I would really like the Orioles to go out there and really go after Michael King. I think it could be a really nice addition, and he's also someone who I can see us going after. But again, any of these 5 guys that I just mentioned, Ranger Suarez, Framber Valdez, Michael King, Dylan Cease, Shota Imanaga, any of these 5 guys that I just named would all be incredible adds. There's also guys like Lucas Giolito who would be a little disappointing, but he actually had a pretty solid year. Zach Gallen could be someone who I could see us going after. Brandon Woodruff I don't really see. Zach Eflin I don't see us re-signing. But any really of these, honestly, any of these 7 guys honestly would be really good. But again, we'll see what ends up happening. But those are the starting pitchers. I do kind of want to go over some relief pitchers because there is some good guys out of the bullpen that are here as well. So for the relief pitchers, a lot of the top guys are going to be closers, obviously. But there is some guys in here, and obviously when it comes to like signing a closer or signing a relief guy, it's up to the team what role they want to have. Like sometimes you can get signed as a relief pitcher and someone coming out of the bullpen, and then eventually you can become a closer and be really good. But going over some of the relief pitchers, Edwin Diaz is the first one that stands out. Him being like the closer for the future could be great. Same with Robert Suarez. Albert Suarez, his brother's already on the Orioles, so that could be really fun. Nick Martinez is on here. And a lot of these guys are pretty old. Like a lot of these relief pitchers are pretty old. Like Edwin Diaz is 32, Robert Suarez is 35, Nick Martinez is 35, Kenley Jansen is 38. We've seen how the Orioles go after a lot of old players, so getting Kenley Jansen would be something not really out of the ordinary. But Ryan Helsley on here could be someone who you could use as a closer for the future, which I like to see. Ryan Helsley, solid player. Same thing with Nick Martinez, Robert Suarez, Edwin Diaz. I would love any of those guys. Even someone like Kyle Finnegan could be a good addition. Chris Paddock, Luke Weaver even. Rafael Iglesias I could see us maybe going after, even though he's older. Like just going out and getting like a solid closer is someone they needed to get. And when you talk about like a solidified closing pitcher, Edwin Diaz, Robert Suarez, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Helsley, Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver's not really a closer, but even like Tyler Rogers. His brother is literally on the Orioles, so getting Tyler Rogers could be really cool. He is a submarine pitcher as well, so that's pretty interesting. But again, Edwin Diaz, Robert Suarez, Nick Martinez, Ryan Helsley, Rafael Iglesias, like any of these like true closers could all be very valuable. Even guys like Kyle Finnegan, Chris Paddock, Sir Anthony Dominguez, a reunion would be kind of fun. He was playing good for the Orioles before we traded him, and maybe re-signing him could be fun. Tyler Rogers could be cool. Again, there's a lot of very interesting names on here. When we get down here, I don't really want to go after these guys, but for these top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, really the top 13 guys, if they can go out here and get a couple of these guys, get a solidified closer, that could be so unbelievably valuable. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow up on Spotify. Also, make sure to click the link in the bio to check out the Twitter and the Instagram. I post on Twitter all the time, live updates on every single thing, post just updates and stuff like that to the Ravens Flock Twitter page, the Birdland Twitter page, all that stuff. So make sure to give the Twitter a follow, post all the time on there. Make sure to give the Instagram a follow as well. Make sure to follow everything. I appreciate all the support again. I'll have an episode up tomorrow talking about the Ravens practice from today and their practice from tomorrow, so we're kind of just going to recap those, talk about what to look forward to this upcoming week against the Vikings, any sort of injury report and all that stuff. So, and also if there's any sort of Orioles news for free agency, we're going to go over that as well. But I talked about it in yesterday's episode a lot, but when we look at this upcoming, the rest of the year, all through November, all through December, there's a lot to look forward to. Again, Orioles free agency, going to have a lot of news on that. Obviously, Ravens play every single week for the rest of the year, so we're going to be looking forward to that. So a lot of news. Again, hopefully y'all stay along for the ride. I appreciate y'all so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great sales day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.